okay, how do you do this? What is up, knife freakies? What is?
What's up, knife?
That's how you do it. I've been practicing that shit, and I can't get it. So I'll leave that one to you. Folks, Jade with KnifeJoy, and we are in, I don't know where we're at in Alabama.
Outside of Vernon, Alabama.
Outside of Vernon, at the McNees Knife Shop. Thanks for having us out,
Thanks
man.
for coming down.
I appreciate it. We've been talking all kinds of bullshit for the last 20 minutes, but hopefully that wasn't on the mic.
Yeah.
And I have looked at your knives. I've been checking them from afar, but I've never owned one. And now at the position I'm at, I'm in a fortunate spot where I get to play around with a lot of different things. And so we wanted to come down and talk to you about your stuff. And I want to hear your background and your history and how you got, how we ended up here today.
Long road.
So you're old.
Yeah.
I don't think you're as old as me, but you're close.
Yeah.
Right?
50.
How old are you?
Yep.
50? Okay.
Yep.
So a couple of years. You tell me a little bit about your background and then where the knives came from.
So, I honestly, a lot of people I know remember like the first knife they got and kind of how they got into it. I truly don't remember a time when I didn't just freak out about knives. Like that's always been my thing. Like I just have loved knives since the time I was a little kid. I remember going to a little local festival that we had every year in town where I grew up, and there would always be people, they would use like little pen knives and stuff.
Yeah.
That was always the highlight of my year, getting to go there and buy a little pen knife or whatever, I've just always loved them as long as I can remember. Never really got into the making side of it early on, other than making a couple of wooden ones, like with my dad. He'd help me make a couple of things, to play with that and nunchucks and that cutting up broom handles.
Broomstick handles and some cord and some tape.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I never was exposed to anybody that, made stuff custom or anything like that. I didn't really know anything about that world. So basically grew up, went in the Marine Corps, spent 4 years there, came out, did construction for a while.
What did you do in the Marine Corps?
I drove a boat.
Drove a boat, okay.
Yeah, I drove it was called Small Craft Company. It's been disbanded, but we basically did like riverine warfare stuff. We carried troops to insert them, like instead of going by helo, if you needed to go by water, they would load in our boats, and I drove the boat that actually carried the people, and we had gunboats that like kind of covered us. And anyway, so I drove a boat. It's called the Rigid Raider.
Okay, that's an important. We're gonna come back to it. It's in my notes. We're coming back to that later.
Yeah. So did that for 4 years. I was always kind of the knife guy in the platoon. If somebody needed a knife sharpened or something, they came to me. I was always buying and selling and trading and stuff. And so fast forward, got out. Did construction for a few years. And
what kind of construction?
It was commercial, hung sheetrock, did acoustical ceilings, and
did you work with tin can studs at all?
Yeah.
Metal frame?
Yeah, metal framing too,
I did a bunch of that shit.
Did that for a few years, and as I was doing that, I went back to school. I had gone to school a little bit before I went in the Marine Corps. Went back to college, got a degree to be a physical therapy assistant, and I spent kind of a twist
that's
there.
That's all right. So I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. So then that was my big boy job. Then I was doing, I was a physical therapist assistant for, I guess, about 10 years. And in the meantime of doing that, as all this was happening, the internet came to be, right?
Yeah,
you and I remember before the internet.
Before the internet.
Yeah. So the internet came to be, and that's when I started getting some exposure to like the custom side of stuff, or just that people were not just necessarily in huge factories building knives.
What was your internet exposure that really started to spark that? Was
to
like
be honest with you, this will
USN
ring good with you. I think Strider knives was actually one of the first ones that really caught my eye.
Yeah.
And like I saw their fixed blades, and I was just like, holy crap! Like those are like nothing I've ever seen. Like I like that. And then from there, I think at that point there was the Badlands Forum.
They had Badlands Forum, yeah.
And I kind of started in there, and then from there I started finding other forums, and that's where I really started seeing that other people were actually, like, these guys were showing their work, and it was obvious they were just doing it like in their garage or whatever. And I was like, oh wow, this, a light bulb went off. I was like, I could actually like do this. So of course I started researching, just like everybody does, about which grinder to use and what tools I needed and all that stuff.
And I think that's going to be trippy for the generation that's coming up now, because forums aren't really active anymore.
Right.
It's all Instagram or Facebook, and there's still groups and stuff like that. But they don't understand that you couldn't find this shit anywhere.
Right. No,
Anywhere.
it wasn't just readily
There was like
available.
3 forums, and Badlands was even one of the obscure ones. It wasn't as popular. You had Blade forums, which I think still goes on. You had USN, which is kind of going on again. But that was like, that was our mecca. That was where we learned and saw that, not learned it, but saw how how big it was, even though nobody really knew how big it was.
Honestly, I learned a huge part of what got me started from the forums, just partially just from, you would see people post stuff, and people were really good. I'll give a lot of credit to a lot of the makers, including like Mick Strider and those guys. Like on the USN especially, there was like the Steel Dust Junkies, which was like the makers section. And man, these like that, I don't know anywhere else in any other industry where you could get on a forum like that and you could ask some dumb question and you'd have like legends in the industry like Mick or Tom Mayo.
Tom Mayo would do a bunch of it.
Right, like literally like answering your question one-on-one and telling you stuff. And they did that for a long time until I think people kind of wore it out and people would keep asking the same questions instead of researching.
They didn't want to go back.
They didn't want to go search, so they would, and I think finally the guys got tired of answering the same question a million times. But I learned tons of stuff from that.
Yeah.
Or just seeing people post like work in progress stuff. And when I'd see it, I'd be looking at their desk, you know, the pictures they posted.
Yeah, what else is their background? I need that.
How are they holding that? What tool is that? You know, what fixture, how are they holding that to do that?
Yeah.
So I learned a ton from that. And that's really kind of what got me started. So from there, I think I bought a little old like Harbor Freight. It's like a 4x36 or something like, not at all what you need for grinding a knife.
I wonder how many people started their tooling at Harbor Freight.
A lot.
A lot, right?
A lot, yeah. And it had like the little disc on the side, like not at all what you would want for a knife making.
The flat disc or the?
Yeah. And so, and I'd gotten a hold of some steel. I don't think it was even, I think it was like mild steel. Like, I mean, at this point I had no clue. Like, you know, I'm not really the big, like, I'm more the like jump in it with both feet type than do a bunch of research and get all my ducks in a row. A little bit to my own detriment sometimes.
Well,
but
your ducks are in a row now.
Yeah, arguably. So anyway, made the first couple of rough knife looking things on that, and then I built myself like a Franken grinder from Tracy Mickley at USA Knife Maker used to have this, he may still have it, a booklet that he would sell that was a no-weld knife grinder plans where you could like bolt everything together.
Everything on.
So anyway, I made a Frankenstein version of that and a little 2x72 and made hundreds of knives on that thing to include. I mean, it was like, it was run by a bench grinder was the motor with a plastic lawnmower wheel from Lowe's that would fit on the arbor. That was my drive wheel. I don't. I wish I did. I wish I did. I had to look back through some of my really old pictures. I hope that I do, but it was
That'd be
crazy.
Really cool to see.
Yeah, I really wish I still had the pictures of it. But I mean, it was literally a Franken grinder and made hundreds of knives on that thing. Finally saved up enough money. And so I did kind of always, it was a hobby at that point, but I always approached it like a business. So I didn't just take, obviously I had to spend a few dollars to put together the Franken grinder, but from that point on, pretty much I would take whatever knives and stuff I would sell, I would take that money and put it back into the business, which was, arguably not much of a business at that point.
What year kind of are we talking about
This
here?
was in late 2007, early 2008, I think, when I first actually like put steel to a belt, and then I saved up enough from selling a few rough looking things to buy a KMG, and then, same thing. It's just everything I've done, I've just taken the money, put it back into buying something else, right? Wow. And so at that point I was working my regular job. I did home health when I did the physical therapy deal. So I could go see patients. A lot of days I could go see patients and kind of get done with my day a little bit on the early side and come home, and I would work for 3, 4, 5 hours at night or in the afternoons in the shop, and then I would still have paperwork to finish catching up on from that day that I'd finished that night. And then I worked almost every Saturday and Sunday. This went on for several years. Worked like basically every afternoon, every weekend in the shop.
Well, now when you say shop though, it wasn't this shop.
No. We lived about an hour away from here, and we lived in a small subdivision. It was on a 1 acre. I had room that I had a 20 by 20 shop back there. So 400 square feet, and which was plenty big enough for what I was doing to start with. But then after a while, at some point of doing that, I'm a little bit kind of old school minded, probably too much so, as far as like paying your dues and stuff. Like I didn't feel like, I know there's nothing wrong with somebody coming in and hiring people or finding people that know the skills to just kind of start a company up from the ground up without putting a bunch of time in personally doing it. But I never really saw that as a path for myself. Like I needed to know, I've had to feel like I earned it before I took the next step.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
So I finally, I guess, convinced myself that I'd done it long enough that I was worthy of actually trying to take it to another level. So that's when I started, my son came to work for me. I bought a laser. At that point in that shop, I wanted to scale up. I wanted to buy a CNC, but the shop was so small that it was doable, but it wasn't ideal.
Did you have the power for it?
No.
Yeah, okay.
We probably, I mean,
No?
we could have had it, I mean, we could have made it work with like a little small mini mill or something probably, but it definitely wouldn't have been ideal. So my thought then was, well, a laser is not that big. At the time, not nearly as many people had like fiber lasers and stuff.
Right.
So that was kind of like my first big investment. We bought the fiber laser. Obviously, we used it to mark our knives and stuff, but we did everything we could possibly do with that laser to make money. Like we were selling all kinds of gadgets and widgets that we had engraved. We were engraving stuff actually for you guys for KnifeJoy. We did tons of engraving work for you guys for a while that you would send us, you know, just whatever knives you had that you wanted engraving, and we would do those. Basically just so that the laser could kind of pay for itself, start building up some capital. Then we reached the point, I hired another guy. We started doing the Mac 2s came to life. So that was when I wanted to make the switch from doing custom stuff to doing a more production type stuff. And some people call it mid-tech, but when it start getting other people's hands involved on it in my shop, then to me that's more like small batch production. It's not like I was just having parts made and putting them together myself. I was actually having people that were
Those terms are weird to define, and they definitely mid-tech. The term mid-tech has evolved from 2004 to where it's at now. It's
right.
It's
totally
not even
different.
the same.
Not even the same. I've always called them, you know, production, small batch production, whatever. I mean, even when we were at that small level. So I hired another guy that came in the shop, and his job was to build the Mac 2s. At that point, I didn't have all the equipment.
It's still at the other shop.
Yeah, this is still at the other shop.
Yeah.
So it's 3 of us in 400 square feet, and by the time we had the laser in there, and by this point I had a couple of different grinders, had a horizontal grinder, surface grinder. I mean, it was getting pretty tight.
Yeah.
We were elbow to elbow in there. So I was actually using a company that did OEM work. This was in the U.S. Everything I've done from the very start has been keeping stuff, done at shops in the U.S. or in our own shop.
Right.
This guy was kind of like the middleman. He did all the milling and stuff. He put us in touch with somebody who could do the blade grinding. He kind of would send the stuff to heat treat, and then we'd get in a batch of parts, and then we'd basically do all the hand work on it. So fitting all the locks, detents, finish work, and sharpening and stuff. So we did that for a while, and that kind of got us to the point where I was able to save up enough to get ready to build a new shop. At that point, we had to make a decision. We couldn't really add a bigger shop where we were. Right. Land around, we live close to Tuscaloosa, which is close to the University of Alabama. Everything around there is crazy expensive. So we ended up moving over to where we're at now, this is the property my wife grew up on. Her dad
that's a trip.
Yes, her dad was gracious enough to tell me that I could build the shop on his land here. And so that's what we did. We saved up enough to build the shop. We built the shop. This one's 3,500 square feet.
3,500 square feet.
Yeah, so from 400 feet to 3,500 square feet, which seemed huge at the time, but then you kind of start building it out and you add 2 or 3 machines. It starts to, I'm already thinking about expansion,
You got room for a couple more in
yeah,
there.
we've got room to squeeze a few more things in here, but I did kind of build it from the ground up with the thought of being able to expand it at some point. So we made the move over here, and actually before we even got the shop built, I had gone ahead and pulled the trigger on ordering a CNC.
One of the Haas?
Yeah, the Haas VF2 SS. So there was like a 10-month lead time or something on it, and so I went ahead and pulled the trigger on getting one ordered so that we could get it in the shop shortly after it got built.
Right?
Yeah, and it worked out pretty good. We got it in here within a couple of months after the shop was done. I had no idea even how to turn the thing on. Like I literally could not even turn it on and turn it off. Like I had no idea.
Did any one of your employees know how to?
At this point, it was still just, as we were making the transition, I hired actually a second cousin of mine that lives close by over here as a young kid that's still in high school to help me with part-time stuff. So technically we had him and my son and the other guy that was helping me at the time, and that was it. And no, none of us had even any idea about CNC stuff.
That seems like kind of a big risk.
Yeah, like I said, I
Yeah.
jump in with both feet.
Yeah.
So my plan at
was
the
that
time,
that was the
yeah,
machine
the
in
very
back
first
corner?
one on the back left corner, yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up getting up with a guy here that does teaches the high school Votech machining class, and he kind of came on for a while and did some kind of contract work for me, and he was able to show me a lot of stuff. He helped me get some of my programs running and stuff, and then I learned a lot. I was still learning myself as I went from there, and learned some stuff from him where I at least could turn the machines on and, you know, some basic stuff. We got it set up and running, and then from that point on, then after a while that kind of went away. So after a while, then I was just kind of on my own. And I still rely, like I'm hitting up Les George or Dave Curtis or somebody pretty regularly, and like, hey, this tool keeps doing something stupid. Like, what am I doing wrong? Still very much learning, but now we are at least, you know, I can design one, 3D model it, program it, and for the most part, run it and it do okay.
So you're
now.
doing the computer design part of it?
Yeah, everything, literally everything to do with the CNCs. Now the guys in the shop now, they can help me with, you know, loading and unloading the machines. You know, they can. I don't have to literally load every pallet. They can help me with, you know, loading stuff, unloading it. As far as all the design and programming, I'm still doing all of that. Yeah, and still not great at it. Still make a lot of mistakes, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
Which ends up with big scrap buckets full of parts.
Yeah, I got some pictures of that earlier.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate, but it's the cost. You know, that's the price of learning. You know,
Right.
Probably still hadn't cost me as much as it would have to go to school and pay tuition to actually learn this stuff. So
no.
I'm probably coming out cheaper in the long run.
But I think that's something we had talked about that when we were walking around the shop. I don't think people understand how much product gets scrapped.
Oh, it's,
like sometimes some of it you can fix or turn it into a custom or whatever,
Right.
but there is a literal shit ton, a metric shit ton of crap in there that it's done. It's
Right.
FUBAR. You can't use it.
toast. Yep. And it really hurts your feelings, and it really hurts your feelings when you stop and think about how much is already invested in that.
Yeah.
You know, because we're starting with blanks that are water jet cut. So if we say I mess up a handle, so at that point we've paid for the titanium that the handle's cut out of. I paid for the water jet service.
Got it cut.
And got it cut. I got it here, and usually by the time it's messed up, I've probably run at least, so we do 2 operations, the inside operation and outside operation. If you mess up on the second operation, that means you've already spent the machine time plus the tooling and stuff to do the first operation, and then you mess it up on the second operation, then you've got everything up to that point that goes into the cost of that you just threw in the scrap bucket.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It's an expensive scrap bucket.
Yeah, it is. It is a pretty expensive tuition to learn not to make mistakes, and it's really expensive because we run on pallets, so we're trying to run kind of like as much production level kind of stuff as we are. So like the handles are
at a time, or?
I think it's 10 parts at a time, so five sets of handles at a time.
Yeah.
So if I make a mistake and I choose the wrong tool, or I have the wrong tool in the machine or something like that, and it drills a bigger hole than it's supposed to, it's probably doing it all 10 of them, which means I just ruined a whole pallet of, 10 times
you
whatever.
You can't fill that in.
No. Once that material's gone, that's it.
So you're running. So that pretty much takes us to current. What that timeline, the story.
In
that you
between
gave us
there, we bought. So I think about a year into having the first machine is when I pulled the trigger on buying a second one, because I could see that we weren't going to be able to keep up with just the volume that we wanted to do. In the meantime, right after I placed the order for the second one, another knife maker that used to be local here hit me up, and he was getting ready to sell his machine and wanted to sell it. So I ended up basically buying 2 at the same time. I bought another new one and a used one at the same time, and had them both delivered at the same time a few months later when the lead time was up on that. So we went from 1 to 3 immediately.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. So and that's where we're at now. So.
And then all your assembly stations set up on the side.
Yep.
You showed me the grinding room earlier in the back.
We got the grinding room where we do
Laser
all
over
the
here,
hand cleaning up of the
and
parts
then this big,
and stuff.
empty open space right here. Looks like it needs.
Waiting for more machines.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We've actually got, I think I mentioned to you earlier, we've got we bought our own double disc machine.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we've been having to outsource to a shop out in California. We're going to be pulling that in-house, which will help a lot with lead times, and costs too, but lead times mainly. So, because all of our parts, the blade and handle blanks, all get double disc before we ever put them on the machine. That way, we're starting with nice, clean parts that are perfect measurements and everything. They're perfectly flat and parallel.
So you're discing the titanium.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. That's, our the Mac 2 is kind of known for their smooth action and stuff, and being snappy and very smooth and drop shutty. And that's honestly where a lot of it comes from, is starting off with parts that are as true and perfect as you can get, you know, flat and parallel, and then maintaining that throughout the process.
Yeah.
So that step is a big deal for us. So it means a lot to be able to pull that in-house and have control over it.
I like it. So in that timeline, you've done, and I got my notes here because
Yeah.
I get a little loopy when I do long drives, but you've done some, I guess we'll call them collaboration designs or collaboration projects, right?
Yep.
You've done some stuff for Tad Gear, you've done some stuff for Spyderco.
Yep.
I even found a picture, I couldn't find it tonight, but I found a picture of one you did with Leon Ma back in the day.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was actually back in the old
at
shop
the old
days,
shop.
yeah, when I was still doing customs, yeah.
You've done some fixed blades, done some folders. You have one that's still out there with Spyderco, correct?
That's right. That's right.
That's which one?
Yep, that's the McBee.
The McBee. Okay.
McBee, this little guy. This is one that what we do is we sell a lot of them. Actually, I think we're one of their biggest sellers of these. I buy them straight from Spyderco, and we do a lot of customizing on them.
Okay.
We do anodizing and laser engraving. We actually
So did you do the laser camo pattern?
Yeah, we did
on
the
that?
laser camo pattern on that. That one doesn't have it, but we actually do. They come without jimping on the spine, and we can actually add jimping on them with our laser. We do that on a lot of them. So we dress them up, and I think it's cool for people to be able to get one that's actually had touches put on it from the shop of the guy that designed it.
Yeah, because you do that here.
Right, we do that here. So I've been really proud of that one. That's I don't know how many years it's been going now, but it's been several. You know, they don't run those collaborations forever, so
no, they
yeah, they're usually relatively short-lived. So I'm enjoying it while I can.
And so I want to go back to, this is gonna, because I'm a fixed blade knife guy.
Yeah.
I carry them, I use them, I believe in them. I like folders, but I'm a proponent of fixed blades. So going back to the boat that you drove in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
And the fixed blade picture that I showed you earlier,
Right.
that is
the Rigid Raider.
The Rigid Raider.
Yep.
Medium.
That's right. Yeah.
You hand satined those? You hand sanded
Yeah, that
those
one,
blades?
that picture you showed, that was actually all the fixed blades up to now have been basically totally custom.
Yeah.
They've all been totally hand built.
So you signed paperwork and promised to bring that back for me. So we're going to do some of those.
We're going to put that into the production mix.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'd actually kind of forgotten about that. So
I'm glad I was
that
able to
picture
bring that one
sparked
back.
something. Yeah, so that's good. We are going to plan on hitting fixed blades pretty heavy. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my big goals for this year, is to get into the fixed blade market more. So this is going to be our first model. We've shown a few little teaser things of it, but I think this is the first time we've shown the actual full finished product. So we'll show that here for the first time. So this is, I haven't actually come up with a for sure name for it yet. I've just been calling it the Hunter model. I just wanted a good basic like hunting knife / outdoor knife, kind of an all-around model. This one's out of 3V. I don't remember the exact dimensions of the blade. I want to say it's between 3.5 and 4 inches, somewhere in there.
Sure.
G10 handles are bolt-on, so you can take them off. We plan on offering, being able to offer options where you can get different handle colors or even materials that you can swap out if you want to.
Swap them out.
Yeah.
And this one, so this is 3V.
That one's 3V.
I like the little scallops you did. I think I told you that earlier.
Yeah. We made sure we go in after we're doing the handles on our machine, but then afterwards we get, we're hand sanding them to make sure they don't have any hot spots and sharp corners and stuff like that. So that's what I cut my teeth on, was fixed blades. So try to be pretty aware of making sure it's done right.
Cool. Well, so you think that'll come out later this year?
Very soon, probably within the next couple of months. We've got somebody, an OEM shop, doing the sheaths for us, and we're basically just waiting on the sheaths to be able to drop them. So hopefully
Kydex
within the next month or so. Yep. Okay. Kydex probably eventually offer a leather upgrade as well. And we got a couple of other models in the mix. I showed you a blank from another model. Yeah. We're just basically waiting on that double disc to get in here so that we can get going on it.
Because that's just raw water jet. The one
yeah, that's just straight off the water jet. Yeah.
Okay.
It's still got to be disked and then sent out to have the blades. These are the blades flat, CNC flat ground, and that's what I plan to do on all of the fixed blades for the moment. But we took them, as you saw. It's a pretty. I need to show you one of the blanks that hasn't been sharpened yet. They're taken down thin. It's a pretty high flat grind, and we take the edge down. I think I told them to take it to like 7 thousandths. So that's before we sharpen it. It's all the way down to like 7 thou, which
super
is
thin.
Yeah, that's thin.
That'll be good for
so it'll
skinning, cutting, stuff like that.
Yep.
Another model that I found, I've never seen one physically, but the Dixon.
Yep.
Is that one you still make, or is that discontinued?
That's from the custom days. So
definitely looked custom.
Yeah.
Everything I could find on
it. So that one's a little weird because it incorporates a spider hole, which I kind of actually designed that knife around the spidey hole. And back to the Spyderco thing, I actually submitted a sample of that to them. It's probably been 3 years ago now. They've been having it in their case that they take around to every show for probably like 3 years.
Yeah, it was at SHOT Show when I was there a couple weeks ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're still
the cases they won't let you take pictures
yeah,
of.
Right.
Yeah.
The prototypes or the stuff they're thinking about maybe doing, which is a great way to do it. They take it around, get feedback on the stuff, so they kind of know what the customer reaction is going to be before they commit to it. So there's still a chance that could end up being a Spyderco collaboration like the McBee. If they end up passing on that eventually, or if, I just get impatient enough to go on, we might end up putting that in production, but I would not do it with a spider hole in it. We'd have to change it and either put a different kind of opening, And the reason I've hesitated to do that is because, like I said, they really designed it around the spider hole in the first place, just the way it's kind of got the hump that comes up over the hole. And I could do it other ways, but since I've been pretty close with the guys at Spyderco too, and they've been really good to me, so.
Oh, they're a great company. A lot of us started, not my first folder, but probably my third folder was a Spyderco.
Yeah,
so,
that's one of the few, the only not high end, but for at the time when I was in the Marine Corps, that was probably the most expensive folder that I'd ever bought was a Spyderco.
And so you were in the Marine Corps what, 91?
93 to,
okay, 93.
Like I said, I waited a couple of years after high school to go in, so it was like 93 to 97.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been just kind of waiting to see if something develops with Spyderco, and I'm hesitant to do like a workaround and make it an oval hole or whatever.
I know a guy over there. I'll make a call.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, anybody that's listening that wants to hit Spyderco up and tell them they want to see that go into production, that wouldn't hurt my feelings.
We might be able to make that happen.
Yeah, so we've gotten, I have people ask about it regularly still, even though it's been years since I've made one. It was a very popular model. It just, like I said, I haven't done a second model of anything yet. We're still sticking with the Mac 2,
So let's talk about the Mac 2s. We've got, these are all Mac 2s, right? All three.
That's right. They're just all those are the 3.5.
That one's.
That's
just
it
the base or basic.
Smooth, yep, basic smooth version. So this is it. It doesn't have the clip on it yet. We pulled this one off the inspection table over there. So that's the basic one. And like I said, they're kind of known for they're robust but still smooth. That's kind of our signature thing. The other funny thing is
robust but smooth.
Robust but smooth. That just came up with that. How about that for a tagline?
We can use that. I think Dunkin' Donuts might have used that one already for their coffee.
Possibly.
Man, I cannot, for the life of me, I have such a hard time thumb flicking studs like that.
Those are
not yours, just anyone.
I get that a lot, and I do make mine different than a lot of the thumb stud knives out there. The angle that I put the thumb stud at, and because I never intended it to be actually rolled open, I intended it to be flicked open.
Yeah, you can't. And so you can roll it, but you got to hit it with the back side of your thumb.
That's right, because because everybody likes to flick them. Everybody likes the fidgety stuff now. So
can you even see this on camera? I'm just sitting here flicking away, and I don't even know if you can.
So
you can see it.
It is designed a little, and we do make our detents typically a little stronger than the typical.
So it's not gonna.
Right. Yeah.
Pop open.
They're not going to pop open, and then
you really got to whip it.
But it gives that preload on the detent so that when it breaks free, it actually flies out good. So you're depending on the detent to provide more of the inertia rather than just how fast you flick your thumb, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like a light switch thing, like with a flipper. So instead of just you have to have strength in your thumb, but it's to overcome the detent. And then once you overcome the detent,
I got weak thumbs. I understand.
You're not the only one. But most of the time, it's not a weak thing. It's usually a technique.
It's a technique. Yeah. I've just never developed the technique, but now with this one, I've got it.
You got it. We get that usually at least once a week. We get hey, my detent's too strong. I cannot open this knife. Yeah. And I'm like, well,
do more push-ups and call me back next week.
I try to always be nice about it, but I've thought about putting like a little rubber band or something in there for like a thumb strengthener, do thumb exercises. It's usually
that's going to be a side project.
Yeah, it might be a little side project. Yeah, we'll have a little workout program
and hitchhikers.
Yeah, but it's honestly usually technique more than it is thumb strength. It's no,
it is because I got it now.
Yeah, I will never forget, one of the first years that we had these at Blade Show, I had two friends of mine that they're knife guys. I mean, I've known them, you know, that's how I know them is through the knife world. Like, they've opened tons of knives, and they're both pretty good sized dudes. And we had the table lined up with knives, and they were just struggling to open them. And I was trying to show them and teach them, you know, and they were both standing at the end of the bench down there talking for a minute. And this little lady comes up that was like 5 foot tall, like little bitty thing. She walks up, and she was literally going down the line, just pop, 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 opening every one of them until she could find the one that felt the way she wanted it to. And I looked over at them and just started shaking my head. And it's not strength. Yeah, they're still my friends. Right. They took it well. It's technique. It's technique, yeah. And a lot of times, honestly, people they want to like death grip it because they're afraid it's going to fly out of their hand or whatever, and then that just basically locks down the lock bar.
Yeah, because they're squeezing that lock bar down. Okay, so this is we'll call it the base model. The base model?
Yeah, it's basically the base model.
So not a lot of, there's no texture on the handle.
Yep.
Bead blast. It will get a clip. Obviously, we took this one off the bench.
Yep. Just rounded edges.
Going to that one.
The frag. That's probably our most popular pattern. Everybody likes the frag.
Yeah.
So
pretty grippy.
Yep.
It's got a cool border outline on it. Fragged on both sides. Okay.
Yep.
But everything else, as far as
everything else is the same. It's literally those same handles. They just get the extra step while they're on the machine of getting that pattern milled into them. Yep. And
then stepping up to the
jigged pattern, so it's made to look kind of like the old jigged bone.
Old jig bone. Yeah.
And that was one I used to do some patterns like that by hand on some of my custom stuff, and I wanted to find a way to do it on the machine, but without it looking too much like it came off the machine.
Yeah, because I
wanted it to look organic.
It can't look like columns and rows.
Yeah, so it took a good bit of trial and error, but finally got it to where I was happy with it.
I mean, it definitely looks more organic than sterile machine.
And can you tell the difference in the weight between that one and the?
Yeah.
It takes
between the base model.
Yeah, it takes way more weight out of it than you would think.
Well, also, do you machine all of them out?
Yeah, all of them on the inside have weight reduction pockets. But then that one, just the material that's taken out by the jigging makes a noticeable difference in the weight.
Have you ever weighed them?
I think we have at some point, but don't ask me to quote it. I can't remember.
Somebody out there has to have weighed these.
Yeah, I think we have at some point, but.
So you're using Magnacut now?
Yeah, everything we've been running for a while now has been Magnacut. We'll probably do another small run of something different pretty soon.
How do you feel about Magnacut?
I like it. I mean, I was a little bit on the fence at first, but I've been carrying one with Magnacut myself for a while now, a year or more, and it's good. It takes a beating. The thing that I really like about it is when it starts to feel like it's getting a little dull and it's not cutting as good, you can take that thing and either hit it on like a ceramic rod or strop it a few times, and it'll be back to maybe not the original edge, but close. And you can do that 2 or 3 times before you finally have to actually resharpen it.
What hardness are you putting on it?
63 to 64.
So going pretty close all the way up.
Yeah. And that's because I don't like to sharpen a knife I don't have to, because every time you sharpen it, you're removing metal, you're taking off the life of the knife.
Sure.
So by this Magnacut being able to be stropped 2-3 times before it has to be resharpened, that's a huge advantage to me. That means you're adding life to your knife because you're not having to take the material off.
Okay, so adding life to your knife, and what was the other one?
Oh yeah, robust and smooth.
Robust and smooth. Somebody better be writing these down. Robust and smooth, and add life to your knife. Okay. So Magnacut's working for you.
Yep, I like it a lot. It's.
I'm not a steel nerd, so I when it started coming out, a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
People were jumping on. I'm like, let's see what happens. But it does seem after that much time, it does seem to be
I'm
the steel that everybody was hoping it would be.
I'm not, I mean, obviously I'm carrying one knife out of thousands of knives that we make, so I try to cater somewhat to what the customers want. I can't just make everything the way the steel I would prefer.
What would that steel be?
At this point, probably Magnacut.
Probably Magnacut.
Yeah.
Okay.
CPM 154 used to be my go-to. I love CPM 154. Yeah. I love working with it. I love it, on my own knives. But ever since I've actually started carrying the Magnacut, I would probably stick with it.
Go with it.
For the reasons I said a minute ago. I mean, it's tough. I haven't had a single one, any chipping or anything like that, and the ability to strop it several times without having to resharpen it is huge.
That part I hadn't heard yet. So
I like that a lot, and that may vary some depending on the hardness, because I know not everybody's taking them that hard. So maybe that's one of the features of it being hardened to a higher rock wool, but.
What is the
I've
max?
found.
Do you know what they say the max hardness is on that?
The absolute max, I'm not sure. Not much over what we're doing.
Yeah,
I don't think. Yeah, 63 to 64 is supposedly the sweet spot. You know, the other thing about that steel is people always can nerd out over steel, but because that one was developed by somebody that's actually in our community and in our industry, people pay it a lot more attention, and he puts a lot of, you know, probably not any other steel out there that the person, well, no other steel that I know of, that the person that actually developed that steel is out there in the knife community, giving you information about it and telling you how it should be hardened and stuff like that. So people pay a lot more attention to that than they would on other steels, I think, because the information's out there. I mean, you've literally got the guy that developed it getting on Instagram and everywhere else and telling you how it's supposed to be done. So I think people pay a lot more attention to it. Which is not a bad thing.
No, I think it's good. It's helpful because so many other steels were adopted from other industries and then just kind of forced into it.
Right.
Some of it worked, some of it didn't, but this is more of a grassroots, ground up development.
It was for us.
Yeah. Developed for us. So, all right, I'm on board. I'll go with Magnacut.
Give it a try. You'll like it.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a walk around and look at some of your other stuff in here.
All right.
So coming out this year, we've got you'd mentioned a little bit of a fixed blade push.
Yep.
Which I'm stoked
fixed blades
on,
for sure.
I'm a big fan of that. We're definitely bringing back the rigid.
Rigid. That'll make it into the lineup. Hopefully this year.
Can you do one? Can you do a satin finish one for me? I'll do the sheath.
Okay.
I don't need the leather.
Yeah, I could probably
I'll do the leather. I just want the knife.
You can probably do that.
That's all right. We got that. That's recorded, right?
That's not too hard to do.
Don't delete that part. Jonathan, thanks, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate the
great conversation.